Vande Guru Padadvandvam Van Manaschittagocharam Shveta Rakta Prabhabhinam Shiva Shaktyatmakam Param Vande Guru Padadvandvam Bhaktavrinda Samhanvitam Shri Chaitanya Prabhum Vande Nityananda Suhoditam Shri Nandanandanam Vande Radhika Charanadvayam Gopijana Samayuktam Vrindavan Manoharam Dhyayam stam shikibicha mole manisham Tannama sanketayan Nityam thakcharanam bhujam sparicharam Tan mantravayan japan Sri Radha padadasyameva paramabhishtam hridadharayan Kahi syam tadanugrahena pramubhu Tanuragutsavaha. Bhagavad Gita class, chapter 12, text 2 will be the starting point, and it's Krishna himself speaking, because we can tell that it begins with Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Maya Veshya Manoye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Teme Yukta Tamamata. Those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect. So like I said, it's the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect. I'll read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. In answer to Arjuna's question, Krishna clearly says that he who concentrates upon his personal form and who worships him with faith and devotion is to be considered most perfect in yoga. For one in such Krishna consciousness there are no material activities because everything is done for Krishna. A pure devotee is constantly engaged. Sometimes he chants, sometimes he hears or reads books about Krishna, or sometimes he cooks prasadam or goes to the marketplace to purchase something for Krishna, or sometimes he washes the temple or the dishes. Whatever he does not let a single moment pass without devoting his activities to Krishna. Such action is in full samadhi. So, this is with the aim of saying something about bhakti or pure devotional service and this point of impersonal and personal fixation, because those that practice Atma Vishya, trying to reach self-realization, they're certainly very fixated on their sadhana of meditating, and ultimately such can lead to surrender to Krishna consciousness, to self-realization. I'll read on in a moment from this chapter, because it's Krishna himself says so it must be right, which is true. But here Krishna is specifically saying those who fix their minds on my personal form, on his personal form, Krishna's personal form, and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect. So what room really is there for debate on this point? But we'll go to the next few verses. Ye tvaksharam anideshyam avyaktam pariupasate savatragam Achintyam cha kutastham achalam dhruvam Saniyam yendriya gramam savatra samabuddhaya te prapnuvanti mameva savabhute hiterataha. But those who fully worship the unmanifested, which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons, engaged in the welfare of all, at last achieve me. So it's got that word which we mentioned yesterday, achintya, achintyam, inconceivable. But he's saying that this Gyan Marg they will at last achieve me. So how will they achieve Krishna when they at last get there? They will naturally take to bhakti as well. There will have to be some the bhakti. This is, if I read. This is another important verse, the next one. Klesho dikataras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hirgate dukam dehavadbir avapyate. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. In the previous verse, he's saying that they at last achieve me, those who worship the impersonal absolute. But here he's sort of giving a loving hint, saying, don't do it, it's very troublesome. And then, as Prabhupada has preached, and many other gurus, the process of Krishna consciousness, devotional service, is bliss from beginning to end. It's not so confusing or unpleasant. Prasadam tastes nice. Krishna Nam is sweet. Sadhu Sangha is sweet. Akilam Maduram Venu Madaram. I can't remember the lyrics. Everything is sweet. Krishna is sweet. His flute's sweet. His form's sweet. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Can't be beat. And then the other verse, which is relevant to this, is Bhagavad Gita 18:54. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samasaveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state he attains pure devotional service to me. So I got it right, what I just said, that the process of the impersonal path, Krishna is saying in the 12th chapter, they at last will achieve me, attain me. And in here he's saying that in that state he attains pure devotional service. So it's setting up, or it's proving the point of the supremacy of bhakti, that if you want to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the process for that is bhakti. I'll read the purport. To the impersonalist, achieving the Brahma-Bhuta stage, becoming one with the Absolute, is the last word. But for the personalist or pure devotee, one has to go still further to become engaged in pure devotional service. This means that one who is engaged in pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord is already in a state of liberation called Brahma-Bhuta. Oneness with the Absolute. Without being one, now this is very interesting. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto him. In the absolute conception, there is no difference between the served and the servitor, yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense. I'll come back to that. In the material concept of life, when one works for sense gratification, there is misery. But in the absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotional service, there is no misery. The devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing for which to lament or desire. Since God is full, a living entity who is engaged in God's service in Krishna consciousness becomes also full in himself. He is just like a river cleansed of all dirty water. Because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. He does not lament for any material loss or aspire for gain, because he is full in the service of the Lord. He has no desire for material enjoyment, because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore eternally a servant. He does not see in the material world someone as higher and someone as lower. Higher and lower positions are ephemeral, and a devotee has nothing to do with ephemeral appearances or disappearances. For him, stone and gold are of equal value. This is the Brahma Bhuta stage, and this stage is attained very easily by the pure devotees. In that stage of existence, the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. The idea of attaining heavenly kingdom becomes phantasmagoria, and the senses are like serpent's teeth that are broken. As there is no fear of a serpent with broken teeth, there is no fear from the senses when they are automatically controlled. The world is miserable for the materially infected person, but for a devotee the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha or the spiritual sky. The highest personality in this material universe is no more significant than an ant for a devotee. Such a stage can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who preached pure devotional service in this age. Wow, so there's so much in this purport, and it weaves back into the 12th chapter verse which we started with, and the consequent verses, all those 12.2 to 12.6 or something, the general theme, it all talks about this point of the supremacy of pure devotional service. And Tattva, there's a very important point here. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto him. So how are we to explain that? Because on one sense it's sounding like, we have to realize that this oneness, and become one with the Supreme. Well, the point is, in one sense we already are. We are, but there is a distinction. He says here, yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense. So we have to understand what that higher spiritual sense is, because that's the necessity, the required required consciousness or outlook, view, in order to render pure devotional service. So there's one verse written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur which says, Jivato jadato vapi bhagavan savada prataknato bhagavato bino rahasyam idam evahi. He's echoing, or he's writing this verse in the spirit of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, highest possible philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, simultaneous oneness and difference. He says, Jivato jadato vapi bhagavan savada prataknato bhagavato bino rahasyam idam evahi. He says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities are eternally the same, yet the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are eternally different. This is a great mystery, a great secret, rahasya, secret. So it's a little tricky to understand, but when we see it, it's quite simple, really. The one, in the sense of oneness, there is this advaya tatvad vadanti tatva yes can't remember vadanti tatva vidas yak tatva advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. So on the Brahma platform, this Brahma Bhuta platform which is being talked about, there is only one, or in the true meaning of Advaita means not two, because if you say it's one, then that naturally implies then there must be a two, but it's not two. So it's already getting very confusing. But the point is that in the higher spiritual sense, we need a body to engage with Bhagavan, because we don't want to stay on the Brahman platform. The bliss of Brahman is nothing compared. There's no ras, there's no ras, there's no flavor, there's no taste. It's nirvikalpa, nirvishesha. So the point of, without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute One cannot render service to him, means that in the spiritual world, in the Nitya Dham of Vrindavan, where we want to go, we want to meet Krishna, Radha Krishna, and enjoy, or have them enjoy us as they please in that samatha sense. But that doesn't mean that it won't be pleasant as well, because Krishna is kind, peaceful, compassionate. It's not some demiurge who's gonna treat us badly. But in the spiritual world, everything is made of the same superior energy. The material world is made of inferior energy, and we are not that inferior energy. We are made of we are the same superior Shakti or energy. So that necessitates requirement of a Siddhadeha. If we want to render service to Krishna in the spiritual world, then we need a body made of the same superior energy. So in one sense, that's what he means when he's saying you'll be one with. But that doesn't mean there's no variegation or differentiation between personality and personality of Bhagavan. In our situation at the moment, there is also not any impediment to rendering devotional service, in that when we spiritualize our life, then it becomes an unmotivated and uninterrupted, like that Savai Pumsam Parodamo Yato Bhakti Radhokshaje Ahaituki Apratihata Jayatma Suprasidati. Apratihata is uninterrupted. That's why Prabhupada is saying one becomes full in devotional service, full in Krishna consciousness, because it satisfies. And a pure devotee, not saying that I am necessarily on that platform, but a pure devotee who's 100% engaged in pure devotional service has no desire for anything else, because he's full. He's as Prabhupada said once, and took prasad, he said, fully satisfied. It is fully satisfying. Whereas that bliss of Brahman, it is also, it says here, he says he once realized it's the supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state he attains pure devotional service unto me. Well, it's that perfect, more perfect, and most perfect again, because certainly Brahman realization is not a drag. It's blissful, but it's not the be all and end all, as they would say. You have to go further. Like Prabhupada says, there has to be some higher distinction. Oh, have I lost the verse? So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. It's quite difficult to talk about. And there is this point of Raganuga Bhakti where one is not motivated by logical conclusions. I was just trying to put a logical conclusion on this point that Prabhupada made about superior energy. Everything in the spiritual world is made of the same superior energy, so in that sense there is oneness, but in the other sense, Jivaras Swarupa Hoya Krishnera Nityaras Krishnera Tatashta Shakti Bheda Bheda Prakash. There we are Tatashta Shakti and Nityadas. We are that's our position of servant to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I'm going to move on to, I'm sort of just reading shlokas at the moment and trying to say something about them. And obviously this is a huge, huge, huge deal of a shloka. It's a prize-winning shloka. Anya bilashita shunyam jnana kamadi anavritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhakti uttama. We can talk about this verse till the cows come home, as they say, till Krishna comes home in the evening herding the cows, and there's great dust everywhere, and him and Balaram and Sridham and Sudam look very majestic and glorious in their rustic cowherd way. It says, when first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires, knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy, and fruitive action. The devotee must constantly serve Krishna favourably as Krishna desires. This verse is also found, this is a purport, this verse is also found in Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, as we can understand from the Bhagavad Gita 9:34 and 1865. The Supreme Personality of Godhead wants everyone to think of him always, manmana bhavamad bhakta. Everyone should become his devotee, not the devotee of a demigod. Everyone should engage in his devotional service, including archan, deity worship in the temple. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madyaji mam namaskaru mame vaisyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Everyone should offer obeisances from moment to moment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These are the desires of the Supreme Lord, and one who fulfills his desires favourably is actually a pure devotee. Krishna wants everyone to surrender unto him, and devotional service means preaching this gospel all over the world. The Lord says openly in the Bhagavad Gita 18:69, Nacha tasman manushyesu kaschin me priyakritamaha. One who preaches the gospel of the Bhagavad Gita for the benefit of all is most dear to Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Lord so that human society can be perfectly organized from all angles of vision. Politically, socially, economically, philosophically, and religiously. From any point of view, human society can be reformed by the Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, one who spreads this philosophy of Krishna consciousness for the benefit of all conditioned souls in the universe is perfect in pure devotional service. The criterion is that a devotee must know what Krishna wants him to do. This understanding can be achieved through the medium of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami advises, Ado Gurvashrayam. One who is serious in wanting to render pure devotional service to the Lord must take shelter of a spiritual master who comes in the disciplic succession from Krishna. Evam parampara praptam imam raja shayo vidu. Bhagavad Gita 4.2. Without accepting a bona fide spiritual master coming in the disciplic succession, one cannot find out the real purpose of devotional service. Therefore, one has to accept the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and agree to be directed by him. The first business of a pure devotee is to satisfy his spiritual master, whose only business is to spread Krishna consciousness. And if one can satisfy the spiritual master, Krishna is automatically satisfied. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasada. This is the success of devotional service. This is the meaning of the word anukulyena, that is, favourable devotional service to the Lord. A pure devotee has no plans other than those for the Lord's service. He is not interested in attaining success in mundane activities. He simply wants success in the progress of devotional service. For a devotee, there cannot be worship of others or demigod worship. A pure devotee does not engage himself in such pseudo-devotional service. He is interested only in satisfying Krishna. If one lives only for the satisfaction of Krishna, it does not matter whether he belongs to this order of life or that order of life. One's only business should be to satisfy Krishna. This process is completely manifest in the activities of the Krishna consciousness movement. It has been actually proved that the entire world can accept devotional service without failure. One simply has to follow the instructions of the representative of Krishna. So he's stressing the point of approaching a bona fide spiritual master, coming in disciplic succession. Tat vidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tat vadashana. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Render service unto him and make inquiries. The self-realized can impart knowledge unto you, for they have seen the truth. This verse, when first-class devotional service develops, one must be devoid of all material desires. And as we've read from the Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma verse, this happens naturally because of the fullness of devotional service, that it's one becomes full in Krishna, as they say, which is the semantics of that is a little bit confusing, but we've already talked about the qualitative oneness and the position of Nitya Das, eternal servant, and the ultimate destination of the spiritual world in Siddhadeha, in a perfected, eternally youthful, completely spiritual body, suitable for serving Krishna in whichever rasa, in whichever mood of love that one hankers for, be that Sambandhanuga, Raganuga, Bhakti in the form of love in Shantaras, neutrality, Dasyaras as a servant, like Raktrak and Patrak as the servants. Different, Dasya is different like that to the Das, to the Dasya type Rati of the love of the Manjaris and the Gopis. So that's like as a servant, servile mood is a little bit different, or as a friend, or as a parent, or in the Madhurya Bhav, Madhurya Rati Ras, which is the conjugal, which then again the Kamarup Bhakti split. We've explained this before. It splits into Sambhogitcha Mai Bhakti, desire to enjoy personally with Krishna, or the Tad Bhav Ijatmika, where the focus is on Radha Dasyam and serving favourably as Krishna wants, as it says here, but also as knowing, one becomes Bhav Tadatmika with Radha, so the Manjaris know without her even saying, just from a little eyebrow movement or something, they can understand the mood of what is required in the service to serve most favourably. But I'll say it again, there's definitely a difference in intimacy between the servile, it sounds awful, that servile, servanthood of Raktak and Patrak, servants of Krishna, and Radharani's Kinkari maidservants. And then again here, Jnana Kamadi Anavritam. When first-class devotional develops, one must be devoid of all material desires and knowledge obtained by monistic philosophy. So this again is this point of if we want to attain Uttam Bhakti, then by some great fortune, mercy of Guru Krishna, the sprout of rag attachment must take root in our heart, and we get that sacred greed, lobha, the greed to taste the loving, sweet feelings and the sweetness of the environment as well, because it's Krishna in Vrindavan. It's not Krishna in some different form like Narasimha, although Narasimha is a Purna Bhagavan. He's a full form, Kala form. I can't remember all the definitions, but it's not like Prabhupada's saying here is don't worship some demigod. And Narottam Das Thakur in Prem Bhakti Chandrika, he says it over and over, don't worship the demigods. We can offer respects, but everyone should become his devotee. Who? Krishna. And in, I think it's Jiva Goswami's Krishna Sandarbha, which I'd like to read. I'm yet to get a copy of that. Jiva Goswami really establishes the supremacy of Krishna as Paripurnatam Bhagavan. He's the most full. He's 100% Godhead, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anade Ade Govinda Savakarna Karanam. So in that book, Brahma Samhita, Brahma has he gets the vision of Vrindavan, and when it starts proper in the rasa filled verses, we can get some vision. Chintamani prakara sadmasu kalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabhirabhipalayantam Lakshmi sahasra sata sambrama sevyamanam Govindamadi purasham tamaham bhajami Venum kvanantam aravinda dalaya taksham Bahavatam samasitam buddha sundarangam Kandapakoti kamaniya vishesha shobham Govindamadi purasham tamaham bhajami Alola Chandrakala Satvanamalya Vangshi Ratnangadam Pranaya Kelikala Vilasam Shamam Trebangalalitam Niyata Prakasham Govindamadi Purasham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam Adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha Vedeshu dulabam adulabam atma bhaktu Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti Pashyanti panti kalhayanti chiram jaganti Angani Ananda chinmaya rasa Sarujvala vigrahasya Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Vedeshu dulabam adulabam atma bhakto. It's impossible to understand Krishna through the words of through the Vedas, unapproachable through the Vedas. But adhurlavam atma bhakto, through bhakti, it becomes easy. That's inspiring words. But this point of loving the land of Vrindavan, which is Chintamani Prakarasa, is Chintamani Prakash, manifested touchstone is the thing, but it's not. It's mind stone. It's Chintamani. Chintamani is a very difficult word to define, really, but it means the chit, chinta, chit shakti. It's what we're saying about the superior nature of the energy making up the spiritual world compared to the inferior energy of the material world. But like I was saying, we don't want to get too bogged down in logical arguments, logical conclusions and things, because although it can be proved with logical arguments, as we're trying to, the supremacy of bhakti, the supremacy of ras, of loving Bhagavan, why? Because it takes over then. It's sort of self-perpetuating, and it grows. The bhakti lata, the creeper of devotion, grows in our hearts. But to love Vrindavan, there's a nice quote here from the Krishna book, chapter 18. Vrindavan is such a nice place. Flowers are always blooming, and there are even various kinds of decorated deer. Birds are chirping, peacocks are crowing and dancing, and bees are humming. The cuckoos there sing in 5 kinds of tunes. The lakes of Vrindavan are surrounded by green grasses, and various kinds of lotus flowers bloom there, and the air blowing there carries the aromatic pollen of those lotus flowers. When the particles of water from the waves of the Yamuna, the lakes and the waterfalls touched the bodies of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they automatically felt a cooling effect. Therefore they were practically undisturbed by the summer season. There are so many waterfalls which are always pouring water, and the sound is so sweet that it covers the sound of the crickets. And because the water flows all over, the forest looks very green and beautiful. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Prem Dham. Prem Dham. But just to come back to this purport to Anya Balashta Shunyam, Prabhupada says everyone should engage in his devotional service, Krishna's devotional service, including Archan, deity worship in the temple. It's interesting, I don't know why he just put that, he's just stressing the Archan in there, which is nice. And it ties in to a point of a article by Mahanidhi Swami, which I could read the whole article, I suppose, it's not too long, which is called Mixing Murti Puja and Ashtakaliya Leela. So this, and it talks about the difference between the sadhaka roop, the form of whatever body we have now, and how we can render service with that. But also this is the internal bhajan, internal meditation, vision of the spiritual world, and serving in our mentally conceived or guru received siddhadeha, perfected body, here and now, because as one thinks or as one meditates upon, one becomes. Krishna says this. So I'll read this article, and it will speak for itself, I'm sure. With the right mood and desire, one can link one's daily murti or deity puja with the loving flow of Radha Govinda's eternal daily pastimes in Gokul Vrindavan, the spiritual sky. By remembering the entries below, a pujari will be able to link his/her Thakurji seva with Krishna's Nitya Leela. Basically, the pujari will transit between presence and transcendence by linking his body and mind with Leela. 1. Pastimes at night's end, Nishant Leela, 3 to 6 a.m. Thakurji, your Murti deity, awakens much before sunrise on the pretext of inviting his pujari servants to awaken him, which they do with the sweetest of songs and the tinkling of bells, Mangalarti. In Goloka, Radha Krishna are resting in the secret bower house after a night of exotic fun in the forest groves along with their Sakhis. When the pujari offers Thakurji a pre-dawn snack of sweets and water, Balya Bhog, the Sakhis are offering Radha Madhava a tasty, light snack as they lounge lazily upon their flower bed. The pujari closes the curtains after Thakurji's arati ceremony so that Radha Govinda Yugal can sneak back to their respective homes, slide into their beds, and pretend to be sleeping right where their parents had left them. Morning pastimes, Prata Leela, 6 to 8:30 a.m. In Yavat and Nandishvar, Radha and Krishna are awakened by their respective superiors. Radha Krishna perform their morning duties, i.e. brush their teeth, massage, bathe and dress. Then the playful pair are greeted by their eternal associates, who make much celebration of the morning darshan. Similarly, during this time the pujari will bathe, dress and feed Thakurji, who will then be greeted by the assembled devotees with arti, singing, chanting and dancing, Shringar Arti. Forenoon pastimes, Purvhan Leela, 8:36 to 10:48 a.m. Krishna Govinda meets his Gopa friends and takes the cows out to graze in the Vrindavan pasture lands. Although Thakurji stays, apparently, in the temple, actually Thakurji is out frolicking in the meadows of Vraj. Radha watches her, Praneshwara, depart for the pastures and feels very sad in Krishna's absence. Returning home, Radha plans how to later meet Shyama in the forest. Similarly, the devotees take Thakurji's morning darshan and leave for their duties. Though saddened in Thakurji's absence, the devotees are planning when they can return for another blissful darshan of Thakurji Radha Raman Giridhari. Radha Raman Giridhari is quite a mouthful. Thakurji Radha Raman Giridhari. Midday pastimes, Madhyan Leela, 10:46 a.m. to 3:36 p.m. At noon, out in the forest, Krishna and the boys enjoy a big meal, Raj Bhog, sent to him by Yashodama. Krishna's many friends and servants enjoy his remnants, Mahaprasad. Thakurji in the temple is served in the same way. Although Thakurji eats in private, afterwards he meets the devotees and gives them his remnants. While Krishna's friends rest under a shady tree, he slips away to the kunj for a midday tryst and a little nap with Radhaji and the Sakhis. Since no one should see this, the pujari closes the curtains so Thakurji can rest and enjoy his leelas within his private chamber, i.e. deity room. Afternoon pastimes, Aparan Leela, 3:36 to 6 p.m. Before long, Krishna wakes up and rejoins his cowherd boyfriends. Collecting the cows, the boys sing and dance while walking back to Vraj. Nanda Baba watches from the Goshala, and Yashoda stands anxiously at the door ready with a snack for her Lala. Similarly, the pujari wakes Thakurji, offers him fruit and sweets, and opens the deity door so all the devotees can see their beloved once again. Dusk pastimes, Shayana Leela, 6 to 8:36 p.m. In Goloka, Krishna is pampered by Yashoda and attended by his male servants who prepare him for his evening pastimes at home. Krishna thoroughly enjoys the evening meal with much joking and laughter, sharing boundless love with the assembled family members who participate. Similarly, the pujaris excuse Thakurji once again from the devotee darshan by closing the curtain. Then they personally attend to Thakurji by washing off the dust of the day, offering fresh comfortable clothes and letting him relax for his evening meal. Evening pastimes, Pradosh Leela, 8:36 to 10:48 p.m. As Krishna is enjoying majestic shows of talent and skill in the royal theatre in Nandishwar, the temple devotees are singing and dancing for Thakurji's pleasure. Before Thakurji takes rest, the priests bring him his evening repast, and warm milk, just as his mother Yashoda faithfully does in Gokul. For Ma's happiness, Krishna drifts off to sleep. Similarly, in the mandir, Thakurji is soothed by the affectionate lullabies of his faithful devotees, and just before his eyelids drop, the pujaris close the curtain to take Thakurji to his resting quarters. Night pastimes, Nisha Leela, 10:48 p.m. to 3:36 a.m. Thakurji's temple is closed. The pujari goes home, and unseen by all, Thakurji, i.e. Rasaraj Sham, sneaks out again to join the cowherd girls for a night of rasa dancing, forest rambling, and a sweet slumber. As Yashoda, who believes Lalaji is sleeping behind in his room, is completely unaware of what Krishna is really doing all night. Thakurji's devotees cannot even imagine what fun and bliss their worshipable Satdeva is enjoying through the long night behind closed doors. Thus the devotees take rest, praying to dream of being with and serving Thakurji throughout the blissful night until the auspicious time of Mangala Arati. In this way one can combine Thakurji Puja with Radha Krishna's Ashtakaliya Leela in the sweet land of eternal loving play, Gokul Vrindavan. Radha Krishna Leela ki Jai, Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Mahanidhi Swami ki Jai. So this is the point of archan that Prabhupada's making in the purport to the previous verse we were reading. And Mahanidhi Swami is expertly giving a commentary of how to blend our deity seva, our archan, with Ashtakaliya Leela, so it becomes, and it ties in to that point of how Krishna conscious and devotional service we become full in. Ultimately, when it's performed in this to this level, we become really full. Every day is a full what's the word? Full menu. That's not the right word. What am I trying to think of? It's a full occupation, I suppose. Yeah. Every day is full of pastimes, and this is such a brief overview of Ashtakaliya Leela But we can review the times, because there's this Nishant Leela 3 to 6 a.m, Prata Leela 6 to 8:30 a.m, Purvan Leela 8:36 to 10:48 a.m, Madhyan Leela 10:46 to 3:36 p.m, and that's the big one, because that's where they go to Radhakund, and sometimes they spend a lot of time at Radhakund. Krishna and Radharani enjoying pastimes in Radhakund because people say the best place on this planet is Bharat, is India, and the best place in India is Vrindavan, and the best place in Vrindavan is Govardhan, and the best place of Govardhan is Radhakund. Afternoon pastimes: Aparan Leela 3:36 to 6 p.m, Shayan Leela 6 to 8:36 p.m, evening pastimes: Pradosh Leela 8:36 to 10:48 p.m, and then Nisha Leela, night pastimes, 10:48 to 3:36 a.m. So we're full, and this is our meditation, like an overview. Ashtakaliya Leela. It doesn't mean the Kaliya serpent. It doesn't mean Kali Leela, where Krishna dove in the poisoned waters of the Yamuna and came out with one hand with the tail of Kaliya, and him dancing on the many hoods of the snakes' heads and beat him into submission. And it doesn't mean that. There's two kinds of leelas. There's the Naimitic and the Ashtakaliya Leela. So the Naimitic means occasional pastimes, such as Kaliya dancing on the heads of the serpent Kaliya, whereas and they're occasional, and in Nitya Nikunj Vrindavan Nitya Dham Chintamani Dham, these killing of demons, Naimitic pastimes, only exist as rumours. They don't really take place. There is no fear of these demons, these dangers. The devotees are completely absorbed in this Ashtakaliya Leela. It means eightfold daily pastimes, because there's eight periods of time, and this goes on every day and every day. And our sadhana to get there, which can happen now. Obviously, this is interesting, mixing our archan, our deity worship, but also in our nam bhajan, manasi seva, serving in the mind, we can meditate on the Ashtakaliya Leela. So this video is maybe a little long, but I would like to just try and put some nectar in, which I'll read from Ananda Vrindavan Champu. It's not too long. The Purva Rag of the Gopis. The minds of the young gopis of Vrindavan transformed due to their rising desire to enjoy intimately with Krishna. Many impediments prevented their meeting, but the chariots of the gopis' minds always carried them to thoughts of Krishna. Because of their strong attraction for Krishna, they could hardly think or act correctly. Cupid had seized control of their hearts and confounded their minds. They tried their best to hide their feelings, and by discussing among themselves they attempted to relieve the anxiety caused by the pangs of love. One gopi named Chandravali, anxious and overcome by intense love, spoke to her confident Padma, whose elegance defeats the beauty of a lotus. "O golden one, listen, my dear Saki. My heart is totally attached to Shamsundar. My superiors are heavily criticizing me for this, and my sister-in-law is poisoning others by speaking ill of me, but I cannot give up my attraction to him." Padma replied, "O lotus-eyed one, you should know that the fresh love of the daughter of Vrishabhanu surpasses all of us, but as yet she has not met alone with Krishna. before she consorts with Krishna, you should fulfill your heart's desire by associating with him first. Once Shyamasundar enjoys with you, he will forget all about her. Come now, and I will make all arrangements for your love tryst." When Radha and Shyam met that night beside the lake, everyone understood the super excellent position of their confidential love. But, my dear friend, you should know that Krishna's love has no beginning and no end. Thus Padma, who is expert in fulfilling the cherished desires of Chandravali, encouraged her and made the necessary arrangements for her to meet Shyamasundara. Meanwhile, Radhika sat in a secluded place with her dear Sakhis Lalita and Vishaka. The immeasurable weight of her love for Krishna overpowered her. While Radhika remained in a lonely place, Shyam Sakhi, who is pure and faultless, and Bakul Mala Sakhi arrived carrying a Bakula garland. Shyam Sakhi said, "O darling of Vrishabhanu, you are the tilak on the head of all the Vraj gopis and the crested jewel of all beautiful girls. Who is more fortunate than you? Verily, among all living entities, you are the personification of love. What to speak of all living entities? You attract even the heart of Krishna, who is an ocean of wealth and good fortune." That night, on the banks of the Yamuna, after the Kaliya pastime, convinced me that Krishna was madly in love with you. He pleased everyone and filled the gopis with rasa. His enticing form acted like an elephant goad, pulling the hearts of the gopis, hankering to taste his love. Like a chakora bird relishing the rays of the moon, he drank the nectar dripping from your moon-like face with his sidelong glances. As far as I am concerned, you are certainly the only object of his love. Seeing your mutual love, my distress is now gone, and my heart is inundated with waves of bliss." Radhika replied, "O bold one, why are you exaggerating so much? Hey Sakhi, where is that housewife in Gokul who has not accepted Kaliya Dhamana, Krishna, as her only object of love? Kumuda flowers open without the moon, but lilies need the moon's tender touch to blossom into sweetness. Therefore, you should know that Shyamsundar is the only sweetheart for all the gorgeous girls in Vrindavan. He does not belong to any one Sakhi." Shyam Sakhi said, "Do not doubt my words and thereby inflict pain upon yourself. Be satisfied with your unique good fortune and be convinced that Shyamasundara belongs only to you." Lalita said, "Shyame, are you speaking just to console Radha, or do you really mean what you say?" Shyama Sakhi replied, "Oh, Lalite, why don't you ask my friend Bakulamal?" Lalita said, "Oh, my dear Sakhi, Bakulamal, tell the truth. Do not say something just to please me." Bakulamhala said, "Hey Radhe, Radhe, this Bakulamala herself will dispel your doubts. Just hearing my words will give pleasure to your ears. This morning that handsome boy passed by me on his way to tend the cows on Govardhan Hill, the source of happiness. For some time Krishna played joyfully with his intimate companions. Then he went for a walk with Madhumangal and entered a forest of Bakula trees. Krishna appeared like an ocean of bliss, meandering amongst the Bakula trees which were laden with blossoming flowers. Krishna and his friend Kusumasava sat down and strung a garland of delicate Bakula flowers. That Bakula garland glowed brightly and emitted an extremely sweet fragrance. Feeling very shy and afraid that someone might see me, I hid behind some forest creepers and watched him for a long time. At that time I heard Kusumasava, who was holding the pet parrot of Radhika on his hand, describing to Krishna about how Radha looks at him with loving eyes. He told Krishna that when he goes out behind the cows, Radhika stands in the watchtower of her palace and gazes upon him with great longing. During his birthday festival, Radhika spent the whole time simply looking at him. Radhika stared at Krishna with totally fixed attention the day he subdued Kaliya. Hey Radhe, listen to the other sweet words that Kushamashava spoke. Although his speaking seemed irrelevant, he said, "Oh, my dear friend, the garland that you made is very special, and you should use it to win the heart of Radhika. May it swing around her neck and enhance her beauty." Krishna smiled while replying, "How will this ever happen? Your statements are as illusory as the will o' the wisp." Kushamashava reacted to cover up his statements. At first he did not respond, but just stood there silently like a picture. Just then, Padmasakhi arrived there like an untimely storm and stood next to Krishna. Carrying the passenger of intense anxiety, the chariot of my mind ran away. But since I was only a short distance away, I overheard everything that Kushamashava said to Padma. He said, "Are Sakhi, what are you doing here? You appear like the crest jewel of cunning persons. What brought you to this lonely forest grove?" Abandoning all shyness, you stand fearlessly in front of my friend Shyamasundar, who always tastes varieties of rasas. Then, full of pretension, Padma put a proposal before Krishna, saying, "Listen, beautiful one, my name is Padma, and I am an intimate friend of Chandravali Sakhi. She sent me here to pick flowers for the worship of Mother Gauri, wife of Lord Shiva, the Pure One. The particular flowers required for her puja are only available in this grove of yours. Hence, I have come here in order to pick these bakul flowers." Kushamashava replied, "It is well known that Gauri, Chandravali, is attached to worshipping Gauri Devi, Durga, who is pleased by faith and love. Why didn't Chandravali come herself to pick flowers for her puja?" Padma said, "O bold one, you are correct, but Chandravali got bitten the first time she saw that poisonous black snake named Krishna standing by the bank of the Yamuna. The poison of his love now sears her tender heart." Kushamashava said, "The only remedy to counteract that poison is to stop thinking about that snake." Padma said, "I am searching for the means to distract her mind." Kushamashava said, "It is very difficult to find such a means. Due to its cowardly nature, a mind fearful of a snake can never give up its fear. Similarly, when one's mind becomes completely attached to Krishna, it cannot go anywhere else." Padma replied, "Nothing is impossible for one who is full of anxiety. Where there is mind, there must be anxiety. When one loses his mind, however, naturally he gives up all his anxiety. When that anxiety disappears, then it can no longer dominate him. Becoming enchanted by a beautiful object can also steal away the mind. Indeed, that anxiety is amazing." Kushamashava said, "Go and look for that one who steals the mind, Manohar, Krishna." Padma said, "At present your Bakulamala is that Manohara, but that Bakulamala should decorate the neck of Gauri, name for Durga or Chandravali." Shamsundar said, "Hey, my friend Vachal, this Sakhi seems to be very clever. She wants to decorate the neck of Gauri with my Bakula Mala, but she is not allowing me to finish the garland." Kushamashava said, "O bold one, your Bakula garland is meant for our dear friends. Who else could be qualified to receive it? Therefore, Sakhi, why not just pick up the Bakul flowers lying on the ground and take those with you?" Padma replied, "How can I even dare to do that? Why are you depriving me in this way? If the Prince of Vrindavan is inclined, he will personally give us some flowers." Krishna said to Kusumasava, "What she said is perfectly correct. So you should give her some flowers in order to satisfy her Saki and to perform the worship of Gauri." Then Padma, feeling overwhelmed in joy, took some Bakul flowers and left. Bakul Mala continued to narrate Krishna's pastimes to Radhika. "Hey Radhe, I overheard Kusumasava say, 'Oh, my friend Krishna, if among the young Sakis like Padma and others, a Saki of Radha's party comes here, she could mitigate the pain in your heart. Then your Bakula Mala will have meaning.' After hearing this, I moved closer to them on the pretext of collecting fallen flowers. Yet I acted in such a way that they could not tell I was listening to them. Seeing me, Kusumasava said, 'Hey Saki, who are you?' Immediately after saying this, the parrot perched on his hand said, 'Aho! Look, here is Bakul Mala, the associate of Sham Saki, who is a friend of Radhika. She is picking up Bakul flowers to make a garland.' Kusumasava said, 'What need is there of a garland when the shameless young girls of Gokul can create Bakul flowers and agitate everyone just by their sidelong glances?' The parrot said, 'Now that you have this garland of Bakula flowers, you should give it to Shamsaki's maidservant, who in turn will give it to my deserving mistress Radhika.' Kusumasava said, 'Shamsundar, just see, my words are coming true.' And the parrot replied, 'A Brahmana's words are infallible. You should give this Bakul garland to Bakul Saki, and she will give it to Radhika.' Then Krishna, the destroyer of demons, smiled gently and spoke just according to the time and circumstance. The young girls of Vrindavan are naturally proud. Why should they come here on the orders of Batu, nickname for Kusumasava or Madhumangala, who is simply a Brahmana entertaining everyone with his jokes and silly behavior? Therefore, O best among the birds, in order to comfort your mistress, why don't you fly to her, hearing your pure, soft and sweet request that Bakul Saki will accept your Bakula garland?" Immediately that best of the birds flew to me and said, "O Bakul Mala, do you recognize me? Why are you picking Bakul flowers? Why not come to see the Prince of Vrindavan? I will give you the garland that Shamasundar has made himself, so you need not toil so hard picking flowers." I replied to that parrot, "O best of parrots, the scriptures are right when they say that one's good and bad qualities depend on his association. It appears that associating with a person who is wanton by nature, dresses in yellow garments, and is intoxicated from drinking Madira Ras has bewildered your intelligence. Tell me, do you think that any chaste girl will accept a garland from someone who is not her husband?" The parrot said, "Hey, listen. He is the Supreme Person, not just an ordinary person. His lotus feet are very difficult to attain," in a meaning of the parrot's statements. "So why don't you try to meet Krishna?" I replied, "Are, wait a minute. I can see he is just a man. Why are you calling him the Supreme Person? Do not try to attract me to Krishna by your word jugglery." Bakula Mala continued speaking to Radhika. The parrot told me that if I understood his words, I should take the garland. Since the parrot defeated me, I could not take the dominant role, so I returned to Krishna, who wears Makara Kundala. Then the mild and sweet Brahmana named Kusumasava talked to his dear friend the parrot. After their argument ended, Kusumasava said, This Saki named Bakulmala should take this Bakul garland to the mistress of the parrot. Even Lakshmi Devi, who has sweet-smelling hands, can rarely obtain such a garland. This Bakul garland should be taken to Radhika, the eternal lover of Krishna. By doing this, Bakula Saki will attain success in accomplishing her task. This Bakula Saki, who is the personification of Krishna's sweet love, is expert in this work. At that moment, Damodar slightly trembled as he raised his soft lotus palm, moistened with perspiration. While looking in the opposite direction, a sweet nectarian smile appeared on his face. Then he gently touched my hand as he gave me the garland. I returned to my mistress Shyam Saki and presented this garland, which embodies the fragrance of Krishna's pure love for you. I told her all the details of my meeting with Krishna and how this garland conveyed his heartfelt desire to meet you, and now my mistress has brought that garland to you. Then Shyam Saki adorned Radha's neck with the Bakula garland. Radhika felt the thrilling touch of her beloved by contacting the garland made by Shyam Sundar's hands. As a result, Radha's body surged with ecstatic symptoms and her cheeks swelled with delight. Feeling the rising of love, Radhika's eyes moistened with tears as she looked slightly downward out of shyness. A mild nectarian smile bathed her gentle lips, which defeated the tenderness of fresh sprouts. Overwhelmed by insurmountable ecstasy, Radharani embraced Bakul Saki and fell unconscious. Lalita Saki said, "Hey Shyame, it is not only in name but also in fame and quality that your Saki Bakula Mala and this Bakula garland are the same. Can't you see that both these Bakula Malas are fragrant and freshly youthful? They both enjoyed the touch of Krishna's lotus hands and got to decorate the neck of our Swamini Radhika." Shyam Saki replied, "You have spoken very sweetly." Radhe 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 Govinda Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe.